We've all made mistakes, right? Maybe you spilled coffee on your shirt before a big meeting, or called someone by the wrong name at a party. But imagine if your little oops moment changed the course of history. Yeah, it happens. Today, we're diving into some of the funniest blunders that, whether by accident or sheer incompetence, ended up shaping the world as we know it. Grab your popcorn, folks, because this is going to be one wild and slightly embarrassing ride. Our first story takes us to Australia in 1932. Now, Australia is known for its incredible wildlife, but who would have thought that one day the country would declare war on emus? Yes, you heard that right, emus. So here's the scoop. After World War I, Australian farmers were dealing with an invasion. Not from another country, but from emus. Large flightless birds that were wreaking havoc on their crops. With the economy struggling, these farmers needed a solution. So naturally, they called in the military. Armed with machine guns, soldiers set out to battle the birds. But as it turns out, emus are really hard to hit, even with a machine gun. These birds would zigzag, dodge, and run circles around the soldiers. After several failed attempts and using over 10,000 rounds of ammunition, the government eventually called it quits. The final score? Emus 1, Australia 0. It was one of the strangest and most embarrassing wars in history, and proof that even birds can outsmart us sometimes. Next up, let's take a trip to the world of science. Ever wonder how the microwave, the magical device that heats up your pizza in 30 seconds, was invented? Spoiler alert, it wasn't on purpose. In the 1940s, a guy named Percy Spencer was working as an engineer on radar technology. One day, while tinkering with some equipment, Percy noticed that the chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. Now, most people would just curse their bad luck and toss the chocolate. But Percy had an aha moment. He realized that the microwave radiation from the equipment caused his snack to melt, and he immediately saw the potential for this discovery. Fast forward a few years and voila, the microwave oven was born. So next time you're heating up leftovers, just remember, it all started with a melted chocolate bar. Who says accidents can't be delicious? Even rocket scientists aren't immune to making big oopsies. In 1999, NASA lost an entire $125 million Mars orbiter because, well, wait for it, someone forgot to convert from imperial units to metric. That's right, the spacecraft was supposed to be flying smoothly in orbit around Mars. But because one team was using feet and inches, while another was using meters and centimeters, the orbiter went off course and plunged straight into the red planet. Talk about a costly mistake. This mishap became a lesson for NASA and engineers everywhere. When it comes to space exploration, math matters. And maybe double check your measurements. All right, history buffs, you've probably heard of this one. The Trojan horse is one of the most famous military blunders in history. But what makes it so great is how it perfectly illustrates the saying, "Too good to be true." The Greeks had been trying to invade Troy for a decade with no success. So they decided to change tactics and offer the Trojans a gift, a massive wooden horse. The Trojans, thrilled that the war was finally over, wheeled it inside their city walls. But what they didn't know was that Greek soldiers were hiding inside the horse. At night, they snuck out, opened the gates, and, well, let's just say the Trojans learned a very harsh lesson about trusting overly generous gifts. Sometimes, the best mistakes come from simply being a bit, well, messy. In 1928, a scientist named Alexander Fleming was working in his lab when he accidentally left some petri dishes out. When he came back, he noticed something strange. The bacteria in the dishes had been killed by the mold. Turns out, this little accident was the birth of penicillin, one of the most important medical discoveries of all time. So, if you've ever been saved by antibiotics, you've got Alexander Fleming and his messy lab habits to thank. Sometimes being a little unorganized can lead to world-changing results. And now, for a blunder that turned into a global icon, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Originally built as a bell tower in the 12th century, this structure had one tiny problem. The ground it was built on was, well, not exactly stable. Not long after construction began, the tower started to tilt. The architects tried to fix it, but, well, the leaning only got worse. Over the years, many experts attempted to correct the lean, but it became so iconic that now people are kind of into it. Today, it's one of the most famous landmarks in the world. Who knew a construction fail could end up being such a huge tourist attraction? Some mistakes don't change history, they topple it, literally. Let's talk about the Berlin Wall and how its sudden fall in 1989 was the result of one massive oops moment during a press conference. For nearly 3 decades, the Berlin Wall had divided East and West Germany, symbolizing the Cold War's tension. But in November 1989, an East German spokesperson, Günther Schabowski, was giving a press conference about travel reforms. The only problem? He hadn't fully read the memo. When asked when the travel restrictions would be lifted, Schabowski casually replied, immediately, I guess. And just like that, people thought the borders were open, effective immediately. Within hours, thousands of people flocked to the wall, eager to cross to the other side. Border guards, who were equally confused by the announcement, eventually just let them through. The Berlin Wall, which had stood for decades as a symbol of division, crumbled overnight. All because someone didn't fully read the memo. This spontaneous act marked the end of the Cold War and led to the reunification of Germany. Not bad for an accidental policy announcement, huh? So there you have it. From wars against birds to billion-dollar space mishaps. History is full of oops moments that turned out to be game changers. It just goes to show sometimes our biggest mistakes can lead to the greatest successes. Whether it's an accidental invention that revolutionizes modern living, or a blunder that shifts the course of political history, these moments remind us that perfection isn't always the key to progress. So, next time you make a mistake, remember, you might just be on the verge of your own world-changing discovery. After all, history proves that even a simple oops can leave an unforgettable mark on the world. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below with your favorite historical blunder. And hey, maybe your next mistake will change the world. Just try not to start a war with emus, okay?